We are well on our way to creating an underwater paradise with the aim of reproducing an environment similar to that of the underwater world of the Amazon rainforest. Now, the footage you're seeing above is not actually from the Amazon, but is from some other rivers in Brazil and gives you the sort of idea we're going for. There's some fast flowing water, there's tons of aquatic plant life, and with that aquatic plant life comes lots of fish as well. There are full-on ecosystems with tiny fish ranging up to some very large tetra and cichlids. We're looking to recreate something like this in our own aquarium. What's going on, beautiful people? In the last video, we broke down my Pride and Joy tank of 6 months, and a lot of people were not happy with that, but it was time, and we're gonna build something even better now. The first thing we had to do was remove all of the plants. This took a lot longer than expected. I saved as many good ones as I could, and then it was time to remove the hardscape. At this point, we could now drain down all the water, and when it was of the right level, take all the fish out as well. They're all separated into groups on the fish wall, with the largest fish going in a tank that's already set up and established. This is awesome because it means we don't have to rush the build, and if we can take our time with it, it's going to look insane. Now, as said previously, I've decided not to redo the substrate system, so for those of you who haven't seen, this is how it was created. The job started with leak testing my brand new aquarium. All was good, so I then moved into building some height. Now, I opted for 3 mounds of soil, sand, and gravel mixed together. It was like a 1-to-1 ratio mix, just some old substrate that I kept from previous builds. I then capped over the top of that with NutriBase, which will provide the main nutrient source for all the plants. I was unsure where the planting would be in this aquarium, so I just put it absolutely everywhere. And then to make sure that all of those nutrients are locked down, I capped everything with pool filter sand. It's nice and cheap. I needed a big bulk of it, and it seemed like the best option and gave the best color for what I wanted to simulate the river basin. Right, before I do anything, I definitely need to give all of this glass a clean. Just with a scrubber, like a non-stick pan scrubber, doesn't scratch the glass, bit of water, sorted. Okay, so that's looking miles better, but there's something I want to do to the lighting. So at the moment, we've got sort of flat lights. We've got the superfish lights, which need a bit of a wipe, but yeah, they're quite flat and they flood everywhere. Now, don't get me wrong, they grow plants brilliantly, but the look I want to go for is a bit different in this tank. So the look we're going for is a river look, and if you use spotlights like the ones you can see on here, we get that shimmering effect. Of course, you do need surface agitation to create it, but when you do, that's what it looks like under the water in rivers, with the sunlight beaming down, just flickering everywhere, and it looks so good. It's my favorite kind of look for any aquarium, to be honest. I've got it on the self-sustaining tank, and I've also got it on this one here as well. But as you can see, there's no water surface movement, so you barely get any of that sort of ripple. So if you want it, you've got to create the surface agitation, which we will. Now, I've prepared nicely, and we've got 4 lights to go on the top. I've gone for the Asta 120. I'll leave a link for these if you guys are interested. You get them in the States as well, and they are like so good value for money. Over here in the UK, it's £100 each. So there's 400 quid's worth of lights there. Don't get me wrong, that's a decent amount of money, but lighting can be what makes or break your project. Nicely packaged. I mean, that's the light unit itself. Let me get it out and get them all ready. Oh, that was some intense lighting prep. All 4 done. I do not know if I'm going to need 4, to be honest, but I've got them now, so they're going on, at least to start with. Quite a bit of mess. I'll sort that all out. I've got recycling bins and everything, which I pay for right there. Anyway, let's get the lights swapped out. It's not going to make much of a difference visually now, but it will do, you know, when the water's there. Oh, that looks really cool. But I don't know if you can tell, but there's 2 areas where the light is blocked from the bracing of the lid. Now, a way around that is remove the lid, but I like the lid. I just think it frames everything really well. And the other way of doing it would be just use 3 lights instead of the 4. There's something about having those 4 up there like that. Maybe it's because I'm not used to seeing it, but it looks really cool. Yeah, if I take you up, ugh. So yeah, like you can see here, these 2 are almost directly above the bracing. So I could just put 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there, and that would solve it. Oh, the electrics aren't staying like that. It'd be slightly dangerous. I'm just trying to get it all sorted first. Then I can run it all sort of properly behind. But yeah, should I try it with 3 in the gap and see if it makes a difference? It's not a big problem. I can either send one back, which I won't, because I'll just keep it for another project. There we go, there it is with 3, and to be honest, it's about the same light coming in. I can't really see a difference visually. Hang on, just shut these curtains. Just hide those reflections. Yeah, can't visually tell a difference because, you know, a good half of the lights were being blocked off by the bracing. And now, there we go, right in the middle of that one, right in the middle of that one, and right in the middle of that one. Right, I need to sort out the electrics, and then I can get started on the hardscape, finally. So this is the area here that I want to build up to be more of a mound, about level where the intake is, because I don't want to cut anything, and that's enough of a rise once we've got all the hardscape on as well. And to do that, I'm going to use a combination of gravels and sands. I just nearly fell over. So you can see in there we've got a gravel, got a different one in there. This is the same sand that's in the tank. And then we've got some for more detail as well, and some finer ones, some different ones. Just combine it all inside the tub, wash it off, and then put it in. We'll go for a bit of that. Bit of that, bit of that. It's like making a little concoction. Bit of that, nah, all of that. Chuck in the sand as well. Bit more gravel. That just went all over the floor. There's no specific ratio to this. I'm just chucking stuff in. And a bit of this as well. And then fill it up with water, wash it, rinse it a few times, pour it out, repeat, and then stick it in. And you'll probably need to clean this 3 or 4 times, depending on what sort of gravel and sand you use. To be honest, this stuff doesn't seem too bad. Drain it off slowly, and it should, all the coarse stuff will stay. There we go, yeah, 3 times I reckon, and we'll be nice and clear. So now it's just a case of loading it into where we want it. There's some gunk underneath it, but that's all nutrients for the roots. So that's created an even better illusion now that, you know, we're higher at this side. It means the wood will also sit higher as well as we tape it down. You know, I don't want to go too silly with it. Don't need to add any nutrients because there's only like a couple of inches added on top, and there'll still be nutrients in the soil, but I will add root tabs later on. Not yet though, because I don't know where the plants are actually going to be. And it has now been a fair few days since I first put the fish in their own separate tanks, and you can see that they're completely comfortable. All the keyholes, all at the front. The angels seem to get along really well. I was a little bit worried, and I have been keeping an eye, because some of those angels are a lot smaller than the ones that were in the Amazon tank before. But there's been absolutely no aggression, which is great because they're all going to be going in the new tank. All of the Tetra as well, look, doing absolutely fine in these tanks, which is no surprise because they're well established. They've been running a long time. Oh, that filter's come unstuck at the back, but still doing its job. And yeah, over here, look as well, all the cories, all at the front, looking good. Should probably give this tank, this is the only one that's got like green spot algae on the front of the glass. I need to give that a scrape because it's spoiling it. This one's got a dodgy tail, I've noticed as well, but that's the only sort of issue I've seen on all of the fish. But it seems to be doing okay. I mean, I probably won't put it back in the tank and just keep it in here, keep an eye on it. Could be some sort of infection, or it could be like a neon tetra disease, but then if that was the case, I'd expect to see it on the others as well, which I'm not, so hopefully I'll be able to get that one to heal. But next up, we're on to the fun part, and that is deciding where to put all of our wood. I've got more if we need it, and it can be added at any time. So as always, we want our biggest bit of wood in first. Well, this isn't the biggest, but it's the longest sort of going horizontally, potentially. Just gonna stick it in kind of randomly, because I haven't got a rock to place it on yet, but so I'm gonna have to lay it down initially. That might be the way to do it, I don't know. I mean, that does look really cool, but I think we want a bit of angle on it, and then it can taper off a few pieces this way as well. I do like that though. I think it'll be, it looks like a triceratops head, doesn't it? Like a fossilized triceratops. But look, I can see that there's a potential for a good gap underneath, and I'm thinking of like fish refuge, breeding areas, that sort of thing. So if I put a rock underneath there, we'll get that elevation we want, And that should look pretty cool. And at this early stage of the hardscape development, it's more about just getting stuff in than like trying to finalize the design. Because it's very hard to picture when there's nothing actually in there. Yeah, lots of people, lots of people do designs, but I'm not that kind of guy. I like to just do it as we go. Because each piece of wood is a little bit different. It might require something else to go with it. How's that looking? Yeah, that's cool, that's more like it. This needs to go backwards a little bit though, because it's right in the foreground, which is cool, but it does limit planting in the foreground as well, because it's quite shaded underneath it, and there's tons of room behind it currently. Like, look at that lot. We don't need that much space behind it. That's more like it, look, loads of space now. And this is gonna set the stage now for the rest to build off of. That's why I like to start with one of the biggest pieces first, and now I can sort of go off that way if I want, create like a sort of 3D explosion kind of thing, and then taper it down and out. And remember, we want another island there, but nothing like as big as this. This is the main one. Oh, I thought I'd just try that thinner piece there. I think that works so well. The whole thing, all of that is tying in really nicely. There's something just chucked in the bank, like to the side of the river. The thing is, not gonna be much negative space now, so I need to shift everything up a bit, and then that'll create that point a little bit more just off center rather than right over. And then I think we start on the other side, but yeah, that looks so cool, didn't it? Trying to picture something that's just fallen in and got clogged up in the river. Oh, I love doing this bit. Yep, done. I'm loving that. I'm not touching it anymore, so we've got our big negative space. The plants in this area will be more lower down as well, but I've left some odd gaps. You might be looking for, you know, like, what's this big gap? It doesn't sort of like tie in that well. That's deliberate. Remember, we've got big plants going in. So like, I've not pushed the rock up to the wood for deliberate reason of planting all the way around the edge of it. We've got a lot of sort of creeping plants and stuff like that, which will fill in the gaps and should look awesome. But we can keep that sort of sandier look as we get into this area. And then plants again this side, but not so tall. I think that's gonna work really well. And yes, we have got a stick going into the negative space area, but it's just gonna add a bit more interest, make the fish feel a little bit more comfortable as well. I'm trying to think of how the fish are gonna behave, and looking at that so far, I think they're gonna behave really well. Can't wait to get this thing planted. Now, as we have seen from the underwater footage, there is tons of sticks and detail all on the bottom. It's another reason why I wanted to leave the substrate in, because I love sort of how naturally everything has fallen, and it does look like what you'd see underwater, didn't it? Like clean areas and then dirtier patches as well. Oh, tripping up. I still haven't cleaned anything up. I'm too engrossed in what we're doing. I'll clean it all up in a minute. But yeah, I've still got all of the little sticks that I've taken out from the last one. I literally just want to chuck them in places and just see where they land. They will float though, because they have dried out, but hopefully they won't float too long. So for instance, like in this area, I can just chuck some pieces down. Like I say, try not to overthink it. I can try and sort of lodge it a bit though. Hopefully the sand and gravel and that will pin it down a little bit better. Yeah, it just brings everything into that foreground a little bit more. Again, the plants are going to be planted all around it, but it should like sort of creep through it. Look like it's naturally fallen there. It's looking so good. I'm so excited to be able to get the fish in already. I'm like already thinking way ahead for the fish part. And we want some over this side too, of course. Something like that. Trying to get it to look like it's creeping over the rocks, because from what I could see, that happens quite a bit. It makes sense, doesn't it? Like getting lodged in those areas. Yeah, I like that. It looks less uniform, whereas sort of this side, I've done it in like a very aquascapey way without even thinking. So I have to try and refrain from that. See how I've gone with the flow of the tank, which you do want to do a little bit, to be fair, but it's very much in those lines. I'm just going to chuck some on top as well. And it might be the case that I need to sort of go in and like replace these after the water's in, because they might just try and go everywhere, but I'm trying to sort of cram them in to little gaps, which is quite realistic, I guess. Oh, that already looks so much better. Now, I don't think the bigger wood is going to float. If you can just about see inside there, it's still quite moist inside. and there's so many holes that air won't be able to get sort of trapped. I'm hoping it will stay put, but just in case, I'm gonna have to glue some of it to some rocks. Well, either that or I'll just fill it up really slowly. But I do still have some bigger rocks, and I've got some more outside as well. Because in this tank, I don't really want to place rocks right up to the wood, you know, because it's going to take up planting room, and I'm hoping it just stays put. Sometimes hopes and dreams are not good enough though, so I guess we'll have to see. If when I'm raising the water up after I've planted and I notice some movement, what I'll be able to do is just place some rocks on top temporarily, because I'm pretty sure that overnight it will be waterlogged enough that it won't start to rise. And that is a risk, but it's a bit of a calculated one. If this was new wood, I would absolutely glue it to rocks, but because I've used it all for a long period of time, hopefully it doesn't move. Oh, tension. I will be nervous when filling it up. But yeah, like I say, I'll just bring it up slowly. If I start to see any movement at all, I'll just get some rocks on there, cram it in some places. Probably look quite ugly to start with, but like I say, within like a day or two, I'll be able to take those rocks off. And that's the beauty of creating a tank in a series like I'm doing with this one. I don't have to rush it for reasons like that, because usually when I present a tank at the end of a build video when it's all in one, obviously I can't have waited days and days for wood to go down, so I would have had to have glued it, which isn't a big problem in most cases, like in a small escape, not an issue at all. But you know, with this one, I like how they are. I don't want to start sticking rocks where they wouldn't be, well, where I think they wouldn't be. And there we go, Amazonia. It is, well, the hardscape is complete. I cannot wait to get planting. Obviously, I'm going to do all of that in the next episode. And then once the planting's done, I'll also be filling it up as well. No doubt it's going to look an absolute state to start with, but you know, that's always the case when you first fill up a tank. Because obviously there's going to be a lot of dust and dirty areas from that substrate being disturbed. But I've got a feeling it's going to be absolutely awesome, and I cannot wait to see how the fish behave as well.